Welcome to News from the Pew, where we take news from around the interwebs and distill it to make it a little less frightening. I am your humble host, the Armed Catholic, Rick Barrett. You can find me at thearmedcatholic.com, and I am coming to you live from the People's Republic of Rhode Island as I'm on my way to the St. Benedict Center up in New Hampshire for the conference starting tomorrow. And I'm joined by 3 out of the 4 of my posse panel. Unfortunately, Mr. Ryan Grant is taking care of some other issues, so keep him in your prayers. But we are joined always by the one and only Steve Cunningham of Census Fidelium and CensusFidelium.tv down in Florida, making sure he avoids the hurricanes. Mr. Jonathan with us. And, of course, Floz is with us as well. He's about to release another single October 7th, if I'm correct, if I follow the Instagram post correctly. Is that right,
October 12th.
October the 12th, which is, yeah. I was not right. It was October 12th. 7 days. That's what it was. It was 7 days to it. Too many numbers for me, so you listen to me at your own risk in that regard.
I just noticed I didn't get the memo for having a shaved head today.
No, you did not. No, you did not, buddy. But you'll get there eventually naturally, so I'm not too worried about that. Once you get to our spot, Steve, you just naturally accept it. You cling on to those hairs as long as you can, brother. But the next step, once you do that, you actually have to go. Once the top goes, you got to go to the bottom. So yeah. We got to get John on that. John has to start bringing representing the hair on the bottom. So, but all kidding aside, our first topic up today is it's politics related, but it's more about stuff that we've been talking about as far as abortion. And the fact that we have continued to let the ball drop. And it's coming out of Georgia, and it's with the Georgia senatorial race and Mr. Herschel Walker, who has now, it's been revealed that he paid for an abortion at some point, and this is all being brought to life right now within the closing run, and the issue being brought back and the hypocriticism or the hypocrisy of conservatives and Republicans. I don't know if we have a clip of that, Steve, then we can
Does
play that.
Does this change anything? I mean, do you want my opinion? You're listening. Not a damn thing. How many times have I said 4 very important words? These 4 words. Winning is a virtue. What I'm about to say is in no means a contradiction or a compromise of a principle. And please keep in mind that I am concerned about one thing and one thing only at this point. So I don't care if Herschel Walker paid to abort endangered baby eagles. I want control of the Senate. If the Daily Beast story is true, you're telling me Walker used his money to reportedly pay some skank for an abortion, and Warnock wants to use all of our monies to pay a whole bunch of skanks for abortions. And yes, when they're used predominantly over 99% of birth control and it's my taxpayer dollars, you have invited me up in your business and I will use whatever descript I would like to. Thank you.
See, it's very interesting with the Empress of the Gun Bunnies, Dana Lash, trying to lecture anybody about virtues or morality. But it's encapsulating. And Steve, I'm so glad you used that clip because it shows that it's not. You know what? Some of you guys may remember this quote. I don't know who the political pundit was, but when we mentioned about Bill Clinton and abortion, and or when Bill Clinton was in trouble for one of these things, they literally said the exact same thing. They said, I don't care if Bill Clinton murders 100 babies or if he sleeps with 100 interns. We have control of the presidency. That's all that matters. So when you listen to Dana Lausch legitimately just spout the same nonsense, it's all about control. These people are not on your, as Catholics and Christians, they're not on your side. And she's using disgusting, these skanks, this and that. Dana, don't call anybody else a skank, sweetie. Glass House, Stones, you. Let's just be quiet on that one. But we'll go Floz, John, and Steve, because that's how it looks in the boxes for me. Floz, the idea here is that, yeah, Herschel Walker paid for an abortion, but guess what? Remember when President Trump was called out on his stance, he actually, one of the few things he did right, he used that to say, listen, then I saw babies and I completely turned this around. But they don't want to address that. They're like, shut up, don't care about that, go vote for him anyway because we need to win.
Yeah, and thanks again, Rick, and it's good to be with you guys again this week. Uh, um, First of all, it's alleged. Um, Would it surprise me? No, mainly because I know he's not a long-time politician, but he's getting into politics, and politics is a dirty game. It's almost impossible to rise to the top without doing something egregious in your life in the past. And these politicians are just like that. I bet most politicians who say they are pro-life are not actually pro-life. They're pro-choice. They just know that this is a winning issue, and most pro-life, evangelical Christians and Catholics. This has been a huge issue, is that we're always looking for somebody who just says the bumper stickers that we're looking for, but don't check the person's moral virtue and his character. That's important, because if you're going to have somebody lead, they have to have proper virtue. But unfortunately, it's all about control. It's all about getting the Senate and control. So it's okay when we do it, right? It's okay when we take control and have no principles whatsoever, but we can call the left out on it all day long because they don't have any principles, right? I don't think that's the case. I don't think that should be the case. We should pick people who are virtuous as much as possible. Now, will I take Walker over Warnock? Yes, I will, because the other person is just evil. He tweeted on 2020, "I am a pastor and pro-choice." That doesn't make sense. It doesn't work. If Walker did something, if Herschel did something in his past that is egregious, like Trump, he should run up to it and say, "Listen, I've changed my mind and changed my heart. I'm pro-life now. Let me prove it to you by legislating pro-life and not treating guys." And Trump did that. I'll be honest with you. And Trump, the best as he could. I know Planned Parenthood's increased their funding when he was president the last 4 years, but he did deliver a lot of pro-life legislation. But I'm not a huge fan of this whole, well, if you guys get to do it, then we get to do it. We have principle, and at least we choose to have principle, and they don't. At the same time, why are the pro-choice people all I thought this was what they're supposed to do, or what they want people to do. So if that was the case, then why don't you guys switch your vote and vote for Walker, because this is what you want, right?
That's a great point, Jonathan. So the two things I want to throw your way. First, the complete utter lack of humility that Dana Lash displays as a political pundit and a thought leader for people on the right. And secondly, I want to expand this point and give you a chance to talk about it. Isn't part of the Catholic faith, every saint that we have was not born a saint. Now, I'm not saying he is one, but there is the opportunity for Walker to show humility. There is an opportunity for him to say, "Listen, man, I was caught in the life. I got run up on it. I saw how devastating it is to me and to the black community." So that's why there's a lot of, but what did we get? Just like with Foz, I asked him, "Shut up. Your thought leaders are telling you don't think, don't care about your values. Line up and pull the lever so we can get power." And it's really just, it's a perfect microcosm of what's wrong with everything in politics.
Yeah, I agree, and I think probably the one of the clearest voices as far as a Catholic in political theory, modern, like how to diagnose modern political theory, has been a gentleman who started kind of the American Greatness website, or helped to start it, and wrote some books. Was in the Trump administration for a brief time, like a lot of people, brief time, but. I think he diagnosed it well when he said modern politics is essentially Machiavellian. All right, and that is basically what the Dana lady enunciated pretty clearly. And I mean, she put what's on the ground into a tweet, I should say. Winning is a virtue. She said that all the time. I mean, she's wrong. That is not a principle in the sense that Catholics would talk about it from a standpoint of morality, but as far as the principle of how to gain power and use it to your advantage, as Machiavelli described well in Il Principe, the prince. Yeah. I mean, she actually puts it in a form that's easy to sum up, which is nice. I mean, it's like, I saw that Elon Musk tweeted out, "Well, war is the ultimate Supreme Court," probably some sort of cryptic reference to what's going on with Russia-Ukraine. But that's, I can't say it's really a profound statement, but it does kind of sum up the thought of a lot of the modern leaders, both economic leaders and political leaders. I think that's what a lot of the world is thinking right now. is that, yeah, war is going to come down. I'm sure if the Chinese and Russians were to ever cooperate in such a war, that's what they're thinking. I'm sure that's what the U.S. is thinking right now, assuming OPEC, eventually bends to the U.S. will. But yeah, so all things considered, it seems that Dana lady kind of described reality, and I hope and pray that in hindsight she'll see that's all that she was doing there. She wasn't actually giving any sort of hopefully meaning to give any sort of moral advice that you should win at any cost. Because saying winning is a virtue, it's just tweety enough to go out in a tweet, but then you have to ask, what are the implications? What do you mean by that? That is, we do anything to acquire, a win. So that's one thing, just in my thoughts about your first question there. The second thing is, yes, like Kobe Bryant, Herschel Walker could, give some sort of public mea culpa, mea maxima culpa, and probably a lot of the world would be better off for having heard him say that, and in some way describing, as you said, Rick, what led up to it, how he got caught up in it, how he regrets what he did. So I mean, this could be a great moment for the state of Georgia, because I mean, Herschel's kind of he's well known there, so it would get out in a hurry if he did such. But yeah, that's the way human life is supposed to work, is that we're all going to make mistakes at the very least. Now, this is not just a mistake. This was actually would have been a sin. I mean, of grave matter here, if you're looking at it from the Catholic standpoint. So he could take this huge public and private mistake, all right, and really do some positive public good, even if he doesn't end up winning, even if he comes out looking kind of weak on camera or something like that, because he's saying, "Oh, I'm sorry for having done this," Still, it could be a great moment for Georgians and for Americans who are interested in it. It could really be some sort of turning point and a display of humility. So yeah, Rick, I think you're right about that. There could be some good fruit from it.
Georgia.
On my mind.
Yeah, that's right. You got those clips, Steve, if you want to run with them.
Yeah, and by the way, what separates Herschel Walker from Donald Trump, from everybody else? It's just, it is
acceptance of it all.
It's almost like a perfect lab experiment to see how low the Republican Party can go with people it's willing to put in the United States Senate, what used to be called the world's most exclusive club. Again, Willie rightly keeps going back to the thing that is so jarring, that his ex-wife said he put a gun to her head and said he was going to kill her. He's never denied that.
To any of the mothers of your children?
No.
To ask why? Why not?
Why'd I need to?
Well, because according to the article, the woman who says that you paid for her to have an abortion is also the mother of one of your children. It seems like that's an easy way to...
Because of the article, I had more kids. That's why I haven't reached out to anyone, because I said no, and that's what I mean. When I said no, I said it's not correct, that's a lie. And that's what I mean, that's a lie.
So, Steve, you got one more?
No, that was it.
So, Steve, unfortunately, because we are in a national governance, all of us, Kentucky, Florida, North Carolina, and Texas, have to now worry about the private affairs of a Georgia candidate. And it's just another example of why, A, federal politics is garbage and we should not take part in it. And B, we have to sit here, all of us, and be lectured by Joe Scarborough, by a guy who literally supposedly, I have to say this because I'm on camera, apparently just found a woman dead in his office when he was a congressman. But back when he was in Florida, John. We got to be lectured by these national pundits, whether it's Dana Lash or the Morning Joe crew.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where we talked about the politics is their religion. The church of, you hear Biden saying hallowed grounds, the Capitol, that it's sacred when they, the Epiphany, I won't say the date, but the Epiphany get together a couple years ago. They broke into hallowed grounds, these sacred grounds, the Lincoln Memorial, in the temple of Lincoln. Voting is a sacred thing. The sacrament of abortion that they keep bringing up. It's the statist religion that they keep bringing up all the time. And if you're not, it's you win at all costs. We bring up Graham a couple weeks ago about the federal abortion ban that he's trying to push in. After you just get rid of Roe, and it goes to the states where the states can kill it if you get uppity about it, and you get activated and do it and actually do it. He brings it back because they need the votes. They don't give a you know what about the babies in there. If they did, Graham, as Jonathan and I talked about, we're from South Carolina. I never heard Graham ever say the word abortion, much less say he's a big pro-life guy. Never until the other day. So again, in my spidey sense are going, he needs the votes, which all of a sudden you have this.
My department is issuing a new resource to remind schools of their obligation under Title IX. For 50 years, Title IX has protected students from sex-based discrimination, and since 1975, it has also protected
By the way, look at Biden on. It's sad that the way he's looking.
Students from discrimination based on pregnancy, termination of pregnancy, or any related conditions. My department is fully committed to enforcing Title IX's protections. The resource also explains how to file a complaint with your school or our Office for Civil Rights if you or someone you know encounters discrimination. Today, I want to be clear with college leaders in America. Access to contraception should not be in question. And access to health care, including reproductive health care, is critical to the well-being and success of our nation's students.
I'm going to sit by and let Republicans throughout the country enact extreme policies to threaten access to basic health care. And that's why we're all here today. That's why we formed this commission. I signed 2 executive orders, and my administration has taken a number of actions that this task force is charged to carry out to protect access to reproductive health care, including emergency medical care, to protect a woman's right to travel, to get the health care she needs, to receive health care free of discrimination, and protect her privacy when she seeks it. And we're fighting this battle in the courts as well. I want to thank the Vice President and Secretary Becerra for their leadership on this task force. And I also want to thank Secretary McDonough for leading an important effort at the VA.
So listen, he said he could basically travel across the states and they make sure you take care of that. You can't buy health insurance across the state lines, but you can cross over and kill the kid. No questions asked, no problem anymore. It's clown world again. That's the only thing they care about is killing babies. That's literally the only thing they talked about for the last 3-4, ever since Roe died. They're running on a single issue. Yeah, 1 million people come out to vote in Kansas, and Kansas, the pro-deathers won there. They got 4 more votes coming up on 4 more states coming up in November voting on it. They're talking about executive orders on codifying Roe. That's all you see on Twitter. I need to codify Roe. We need to win the Senate so we can codify Roe. We need this to get the 51st vote that the what's his face in Pennsylvania, the weird looking dude that wears.
Fetterman.
He's all he's talking about. Vote for me. I'll be that remaining vote to vote codify Roe. It's all they are talking about is, hey, how can I help kill more babies? And here we had the solution, bringing it back to the states to squash it, and the GOP brought it back into the feds, and they're running with it. As we talked about before, they took advantage. As we brought up, it's okay when we do it. If you're going to do the executive orders and cheer for it like all the other guys prior, you can't complain about when your other team does it against us. And we saw that coming a mile away, clear as night. No pro-life group has been talking about or doing anything about this except popping champagne corks for the last couple of weeks still. And now we look what we're getting into. We're going to have a codified federal law somehow on Roe because Graham opened the door for it. And now, again, with the votes, they don't care. Morality thrown out the window. It's all about winning. Dr. Paul talked about long ago in an interview. The question was, how come all your pro-life bills get squashed in Congress? He goes, well, what else is the GOP going to run on? He was 100% pro-life across the board. He had pro-lifers squashing his pro-life bills because they knew if they ended up getting rid of abortion, they can't run on it anymore. They can't go back to the constituents and lie, saying, vote for me, give me money, and I'll end abortion. And when they get elected, they do absolutely nothing besides collect money from other groups. Now they have to have that little football to kick and keep kicking and keep kicking. They lost it. They have nothing else to run on. And it's just – and more kids, more babies are going to die because of it. And all they care about is the religion of winning. They got to win at all cost.
Yeah, absolutely in that regard. And that's the perfect place to end on this, is that it, once again, as we said before, you got to stay on top of it. You have to make sure that your state is ready for whatever they're going to throw at you. Of course, none of us here thought that the first one would be from the right to bring it back into a federal level. We thought it was going to be somebody on the left, but that's just how all of this works. And so it's sad that the Walker situation exists, but at the same time, it's just another way for them to bring it back to the forefront. Try to get Rovember, as they hashtag and call it, on the ballot so they can continue to push this, because they are a single issue voting block right now, and they're charged up about it. So, and that's why I'm saying, like, Walker could take the opportunity to squash it by offering a redemption arc and making sure that, hey man, yeah, it's not great for everybody. It's not what they promise. It's not what the life is. All these things, it would be such a powerful testimony to the actual reality of abortion. But he has terrible political managers. So they're just going to say, no, deny, don't do this, don't do that. And that's why if he looks as foolish as he does. So that's the abortion issue coming up that we've talked about here. And moving on, we are going to talk about the pipelines, those fabled pipelines in Europe. And apparently it's taboo to say anything else but the Russians.
Of the Nord Stream pipeline, which I would bet was a U.S. action, perhaps U.S. and Poland. This is
Jeff, we got to stop there. That's quite a statement as well. Why do you feel that was a U.S. action? What evidence do you have of that?
Well, first of all, there's direct radar evidence that U.S. Helicopters, military helicopters that are normally based in Gdansk, were circling over this area. We also had the threats from the United States earlier in this year that one way or another, we are going to end Nord Stream. We also have a remarkable statement by Secretary Blinken last Friday in a press conference that he says, this is also a tremendous opportunity. It's a strange way to talk if you're worried about the piracy on international infrastructure of vital significance. So I know this runs counter to our narrative. You're not allowed to say these things in the West. But the fact of the matter is, all over the world, when I talk to people, they think the U.S. did it. And just to tell you, and by the way, even reporters on our papers that are involved tell me privately, yeah, well, of course, but it doesn't show up in our media.
Professor, I don't want to get into tit for tat about.
This is also a tremendous opportunity. It's a tremendous opportunity to once and for all remove the dependence on Russian energy, and thus to take away from Vladimir Putin the weaponization of energy as a means of advancing his imperial designs. That's very significant, and that offers tremendous strategic opportunity for the years to come.
So I can't help but love Blinken's comments about imperialistic Russia, when the only imperialistic country that's been acting since World War II has been these United States of Amazon, trying to conquer every country they can find, or at least impose and spread democracy. As I said last week, it wouldn't be the first time the U.S. has goaded another country into war via the Japanese in 1945, the Cuban-American War with the sinking of the USS Maine. And the fact was that even questioning you're violating the idea that America is perfect. It's a perfect country, and it's so moral, it's so just. But I'm glad to see. I'm glad he did that. I'm surprised his condo or apartment didn't get drone striked midair in the middle of it. But yeah, you cannot question the war machine.
Yeah. Again, just like last week, I don't have much on this because I don't know too much about it. It's interesting to me when Blinken said this is a great opportunity, for us to end our independence from Russia because they blew up their own pipeline, because that makes perfect sense. But and this is kind of funny too. I mean, the guy didn't give absolute evidence, but it's like, guy's got chocolate on his face, and it's like, where's the evidence that I ate the cookie? Well, you got chocolate on your face. That's not evidence. Uh, it's kind of hilarious. I'll just keep this brief regarding this. The WEF wins here when it comes to Nord Stream 2. As we know, the losers are really is going to be Germany. Unfortunately, with the dependence on Russia. But I will just gonna make this point here and I think you're right, and now I don't have enough evidence for me to say it was the U.S. Now, looking back at our history and our track record, is it possible? Of course, it is. Who has a lot to gain? We do in this effort to help Ukraine defeat Russia. And again, I don't know too much about the situation for me to make a meaningful comment on the situation. I just know that the WF wins here, and a lot of folks are going to freeze to death this winter, unfortunately.
It's one of these things where Nord Stream 2 has to be blown up, Nord Stream 1 has to be blown up, so that way we can continue sending 12 billion, to the Ukraine, another 625 million to the Ukraine. It's to the point where every day it seems like another, imaginary number of money is shipped over to this laundromat of the world to be washed and then distributed to their to all these global people and all the global funds and all these other kinds of things. But John, the hubris of the United States, where it's like, yeah, we have the helicopter on radar over the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, and he goes, and circumstantial at best, and the fact that they are trying to push death and destruction and suffering and harm on innocent people. And it's absolutely disgusting to see that. And when people call it out, like Sachs, they're like, "Oh, how dare you? How dare you say that?"
Well, first, I want to take this opportunity to scare away any beneficantist and sedevacantist by saying, see the power of the Pope can at least partially convert someone like Jeffrey Sachs. So hopefully that scares as many beneficantists and sedevacantists away as possible. But in all seriousness, I listened today to Tucker Carlson's monologue from his show last night, where he's dissecting this, and I thought he just brought up a great point. I don't think he took it quite far enough, but he brought up a great point in that in a so-called democracy or democratic republic or Republican democracy, however you want to call it, more colloquially or precisely, it's clear that our leaders are lying to the people who are supposedly in charge or work for those who have been voted into office, as is often the case with people like from whom we just heard. They're lying with impunity. They're lying, and everyone, you all have seen either a meme that recreates this or read it in an article. They know that they're lying. They know that we know that they're lying. They know that we know that they are lying. And then it kind of goes on ad infinitum. I guess the real question that it makes us ask ourselves is, how far is the lying supposed to go? As someone who loves the land of his birth, if you were born in the United States of America, I mean, we could get into the the necessary issues about trying to divest from DC, but I mean, right now, de facto, these are the people who are running our country. or most of what we would say is running our country. And it's terrifying as an American to see right there that someone who's just saying something that is on anybody who's got half a brain and is not completely sold on the everything that is going wrong with the world is Russia's fault, or everything that is good in the world is U.S.'s virtue, has to be scratching his head or her head and asking the same exact question. Like, how in the world can we not be admitting that the only people that, from all that we know publicly, the only people who stand to benefit from this are the U.S. and perhaps some European countries who would stand to make some money if their oil or their natural gas were to be, in this case, I guess, a methane natural gas were to be sold instead of something that's coming through Nord Stream. So it's just one of those moments where you have to you have to ask yourself, when even like just a basic quick philosophical question, when Aristotle is talking about the six types of government, the ways that government by one can be good or bad, government by a few, oligarchy, or can be aristocracy. When he's talking about even a democracy or a republic, a politeia, people have often made the point that he's talking about smaller societies back then, or smaller polis. I mean, this is too big of a country for our rulers to be getting away with clearly impunitive lying right here about a subject that really makes a difference. Because, I mean, from all that we can tell that's out in the public right now, this could be the reason to start World War III and to make it nuclear, as Zelensky has encouraged. I'll just repeat this again. Zelensky has encouraged a preemptive strike because, hey, Russia might be going after us. Now they might want to nuke us. Why? Because we did nothing? No, because Russia bombed their own. I mean, it's a serious issue, and we need to demand some accountability from people who are supposed to be our leaders. But what can you do in a democracy, right? We have the power, but we really don't.
Yeah, it's definitely an issue where we're looking at our, just kind of like with Dana Lausch, our thought leaders, the people that are supposed to be looking out for our best interests. Steve, they're only looking out for theirs, whether it's these United States or the WEF or whatever. They're going to push this plan through, and you and I have talked about it. You've talked about it on the Kalam Planet. You can read the WEF's great resets. This is all according to plan. I'll tie this into it as well. Today, there was the announcement that because Joe went to the Saudis and he asked for oil and they said, no, what's he going to do? He's going to drain the strategic reserve. That's according to plan. They want that thing empty. They don't want us to have any of that. Now they're going to go to the Venezuelans, or they're going to go to anybody else, not the 99 billion barrels that are in East Texas or in West Texas. They're going to beg it for everybody else, Steve, because that's what they want. This is, no matter how, and you've said this before, and I'll shut up and throw it to you. They're going to do everything they can to get to that goal. They got to blow up pipelines. They got to start wars, whatever they got to do. They are going to do what they can to get to this end game.
Yeah. And here's a tweet that came out the other day. In 7 months, our government has given, as in the United States, given $49 billion in weapons alone to Ukraine. But kids here will apparently have to get used to being hungry. NBC News tweet. With the end of free school meal program, some students don't qualify for free or reduced meal plans now, so they're skipping lunch. Quote, there's a point when you just got to get used to being hungry. It's a Pennsylvania high school student said. Hey, it's all about caring for the, caring about the kids, except not our kids. And if you don't kill them at first, you'll just starve them later. Back to Jeffrey Sachs. He's been getting out there a little bit more. I don't know if it's controlled op or what, but he came out saying in August 2nd, 2022, he's pretty convinced that the Rona, or as JP says, that came out of a U.S. lab biotech, which there's been a lot of people talking about that recently. And alt media has been talking about it for over a year and a half, talking about North Carolina, University of North Carolina, when they weaponized SARS, Fort Detrick, all that. And then going out the world, the military games and just outside, what's his face, the region out there. And they all got sick. Usually they dominate. They ended up having a little sickness. I wish I would have pulled the video from the England games. I don't know if you guys saw that with a horned bull and another demonic celebration. It looks like just weird how everything's going around like this. And yes, as Jonathan brought up, Zelensky's brought up about the nuke thing. don't buy into the thing about Putin nuking anybody. That's an idea. If and not saying that John said that, if you're hearing that on the media saying Putin's going to nuke Ukraine, why would he do that? He's winning. Why would he? That's something that if he was against the rails, maybe he might do, but that's just made for what good would he do at it? And there's no good, no benefit for him to do things like this. And as Rick was bringing up, yes, it's all about the World Economic Forum, the reset, all being planned almost to a T in the agenda. You see what rolls down every time. And do you want to go ahead and get into the next one? I mean,
yeah, because it ties right into it with the social credit trial run.
Yeah.
Because that's what we're looking at there. That's the other part. That's the other hand. Everybody is either looking at the fact that gas prices are going up or whatever, food shortages or the heating crisis, which are all valid concerns, obviously. We're not discounting any of that. But while one hand is worrying about this, the other hand, you're seeing here that in these United States, not in China, not in Europe, not in Central America, here you have banks, and that's how they do it. Everybody has this thing, oh, look, government's going to do all that. Guys, the government doesn't have to. The government and big corp work hand in hand. And that's big banks, big auto, big retail, big ag, whatever you want to call it. They're all working hand in hand to get this stuff because they all benefit. And if you don't believe me, that's fine. Just remember during the Rona, who was open? Not mom and dad, Walmart, Target, Home Depot. Oh, we're shut down, but if you want to go build a deck, go in and go grab like 16 pounds of wood at Home Depot and you can build a deck. But mom and dad can't have their barber shop open. All right. So when you think about it, just want to open your eyes to the fact that big tech, big government, big ag, big whatever works with the government. The government and that's why, like in 2012, during the re-election of Biden and Obama, what did they do? They gave all this money to GM, all to Ford, all to Chrysler, and they saved those people. So those unions were in the back pocket and those states were saved. It's all how they do these types of things. And so people think like Biden's going to stumble out there, run into a microphone one day and be like, social credit score for everybody. And it's like, no, your bank's going to introduce it slowly. It's going to, the frog in the boiling water with the credit score. So, and that's what we're looking at here. And Steve, I'll just set you up for this. But, and then we'll go Steve, John, Fawaz. Everybody was more concerned about what? Everybody's more concerned about Twitter or Elon Musk. Elon Musk is finally buying Twitter. Yay, we're all saved. It's the greatest thing ever. Meanwhile, the bank is like, by the way, we're shutting down your fridge for a month because you tweeted about Trump.
Well, I played this clip many times.
I just don't understand how it gets to the point where
things get to terrible places one tiny step at a time. If I encroach on you and I'm sophisticated about it, I'm going to encroach 2 millimeters. I'm going to encroach right to the point where you start to protest. Then I'm going to stop. Then I'm going to wait. Then you're going to calm down. Then I'm going to encroach again right to the point where you protest. Then I'm going to stop. Then I'm going to wait. And I'm just going to do that forever. And before you know it, you're going to be back 3 miles from where you started.
This is 5 months ago.
Through technology, an ability for consumers to measure their own carbon footprint. What does that mean? Where are they traveling? How are they traveling? What are they eating? What are they consuming on the platform? So, individual carbon footprint tracker. Stay tuned. We don't have it operational yet, but this is something that we're working on.
Australia.
Facial recognition is technology that recognises you. It can predict your age, gender, even your current mood, leaving privacy laws on a limb.
There are so many exceptions and exemptions where you think you might be protected, but in fact, a company or a government agency can basically do what they want.
Earlier this year, Kmart was caught trialling the tech at some of its stores. The Good Guys and Bunnings as well. All said they were using it to flag customers with a history of shoplifting or abuse. All have since stopped.
This was allowed to happen basically completely.
Bologna.
This September, the Italian city of Bologna is piloting a social credit system, the first of its kind in Europe. The municipal government is introducing a smart citizen wallet, rewarding digital points for citizens who demonstrate virtuous behavior. The Disturbingly, actions related to one's carbon footprint are central to what's considered rewardable virtuous behavior. Because use is still voluntary, this social credit system isn't yet as all-encompassing as the one that exists in China. Rather than penalizing citizens for not behaving virtuously, as defined by the government, citizens will only be rewarded. The government hopes that this distinction, treating the social credit score more like a reward card, will increase.
This came out 2 days ago on the Feast of St. Francis.
Can releases Pope Francis's wildly anticipated encyclical on the environment.
La naturaleza grita. Deténganse. Deténganse. Refuge climatique. Un manque de la protection de la nature qui pousse aux.
And you want to watch the whole hour and 30 minutes of it, go to it. They're linked in YouTube for it. It's, as the technocrats say, and Patrick Wood brings up in his book, Laudato Si is the gospel of the technocrats and basically the religion of earthism. And what we got going on now, here's a trial. The banks in this pilot exercise of Bank of America, Citigroup, Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan Chase, Morgan Stanley, and Wells Fargo, all WEF partners. And this is a trial run. This is from the conspiratorial website, federalreserve.gov, by the way, for a trial run of the social credit score. Trial run. And then how many trials end up going away? They're just, and the think locally, act locally idea. I don't know if you got to get, maybe we got to get out of these banks to get into. There's some Catholic solution wise. There's some Catholic federal unions out there. But this is very ominous in the sense of at one time you're going to be not allowed to use, buy, purchase, sell, drive. We get into EV cars. You guys were talking about that about the Hurricane. We've been bringing up about the idea of eventually you're not going to be able to drive to your mass. You're going to have to move closer within walking distance. If a social credit score like this comes in, this will prevent you from traveling because they got a kill switch coming on in 2025 in the new cars. You brought up Toyota and things like this. Solution wise, break away, get rid of these Toyotas, get rid of all these other guys, decentralize all these companies. I was in a museum. We brought this up a couple of weeks ago up in Concord, North Carolina, where you saw 30 different cars, all made by people not named Honda, Toyota, etc. Local companies that used to make cars. You can't tell me there's people in each state that can't figure out how to make a car again, and you can drill your own oil or get in a confederation with some Gulf Coast states maybe and import oil into your area because you mentioned OPEC, 2 million a day going away. You got the curve of the reverse hockey stick of the reserves. They're going to get rid of the oil and gas one way or another. We can protest all we want or stand against or fight back by saying, we're not buying it. But when they don't have gas coming through the pumps anymore, what's the plan? What are you going to do when you can't pump anything in? We got to do a little bit more on it. We got to think big times on this because this stuff like this, the only way out of it ain't voting harder.
John, you had something you wanted to get in.
Yeah, just I'm glad Steve showed those clips too, because when you see WEF, it made me think too of a caveat that if I ever say anything about current world crises, I need to always keep in mind. I think we all do, really, is that we can mention controlled opposition, but we really got to think like in concrete terms too, like what specifically could be controlled and how for what ends. So for instance, I saw I've got some Belarusian friends. Belarus, Lukashenko, their PM just said like they're not gonna. He said from today on there are going to be no more price raises. You can't increase prices on anything from today, not from tomorrow, not from a week from now. You're thinking, what? How does that ever make sense in any sort of economy where you want private individuals to be able to own anything, that's not directly controlled by the state, where there's not some sort of, you scratch my back, I scratch yours with incentives from the state. And then when I saw as well from a buddy of mine who follows Russian news that the Russian, I think it was defense minister of the interior, one of the two, who said, Russia has committed itself to never initiating a nuclear war. Okay, first of all, it's kind of odd from a tactical standpoint to ever say that. Very, very curious. But I mean, just taking it at face value, you think, okay, so if we don't get into some sort of big war, like all this rumors of wars, to use the biblical quote, what's it for? Could it be? I mean, we're talking about various running interference here. I mean, could it be just a way to distract us from what they are actually doing, have been telling us they're going to do forever, and what Steve's been documenting meticulously for the last few years? I mean, could this all just be some sort of interference? I pray to God that that's kind of what it is, and that it's not actually going to turn into nuclear war. And the thing is, I think we need to realize that. I mean, I'm not pretending to make this some sort of official or even quasi-official interpretation of the Gospel's apocalyptic text here, but I mean, it could be that our sort of apocalyptic events are going to be pretty much just what you see the WEF promoting, just what you see Steve documenting in Clown Planet, and for the last few years here, is that they want to make this these social credit scores a way of controlling food, so that, I mean, people really do starve to death, and that, as we joked about before, I mean, it could be some actual climate events that we can't run from, that we see coming miles and miles away, but you can't get out of town because you don't have a vehicle that has been turned on or been allowed to move. And you wouldn't do that with a gas vehicle because the risk of spontaneous combustion would be too great. But with electric vehicles, yeah, just there's a kill switch. So I mean, I asked myself in the midst of all this, could this all just be the Russia-Ukraine thing, a way for even Russia to take more advantage of its citizens? And remember where Putin got his training at the WEF. There's a so I don't know. I part of me prays that's all it is, and part of me says it's going to be horrible one way or the other, at least in secular terms. So kind of get ready for either scenario, maybe.
So flaws we see plainly, they don't hide it. And that's a sin of pride, right? They have to tell you. And kind of almost like a serial killer has to go back to the scene of the crime. They'll post it. Yeah, it's happening. They know we're too busy with football season, or we're too busy with Twitter followers, or we're too busy with this, that, and the other thing, that when it comes down, we won't have a chance, or we won't have a choice. Vote. You voted in November. Great. It's still happening.
Yeah, I think I think Steve and Jonathan and even Rick, you guys brought up some great points for this. I don't have much to share, but I will say this. I think to your point, Rick, that they're so blatant about it. There's only two possibilities here. Either they're desperate because they're running out of time, because those who are started this are getting older, so they want to see the fruit of their work come to fruition, or they're just such in full control that they don't care, that they don't care that anymore. Because while we were watching football and basketball and wrestling and eating, watching Jared and Subway losing weight, just fat jeans throughout all those years, and eating junky food and GMOs, while we were doing that for the last 50, 60 years, these guys were planning, putting their men and women inside prominent positions to make these decisions and to rule over us. I think that they can't really they can't have it both ways. They can't introduce digital ID with the current population. It's going to be too crazy for them to do. So I think they're going to have to decrease the population in order for them to do so. I think that's what they're giving themselves to 2030, provided they'll all be alive by then. We need an act of God. Our Lady of Fatima is the only solution to this. Because our solution would have been 50 years ago if men would have been virtuous and not worry about the bears versus the lions, and actually would have seen and had any foresight, would have seen that all the stuff that's been going on in the past 50, 60 years actually could lead up to this, and it does lead up to this. We would have had virtuous men stop this and had great men get into positions to kick all these people out. So we'll talk about Putin and his nuke. I think Jonathan's right. There's no incentive for Putin to do that. And even though, if you did nuke Ukraine and the wind blows east, you're going to get a lot of that because you're next door, and then you're really blowing up a country you're trying to take over anyways, so that you can have more resources for military power. To me, I've always said this. It's always been my principle. Perfect virtue is the answer to every social problem. Because if you had virtuous men, these men would not have an inch. But because we've just been so weak, and then we wake up all of a sudden because it's enforced on us, And we wake up all of a sudden, realize these people have been planning for years and years and years, and we've done nothing. And now it's like, all right, we got our Kerry Lake, let's go into Arizona. That's going to save the planet. It's getting to a point where now it's either Our Lady of Fatima, it's God intervention, or it's nothing. But unfortunately, I think a lot of people are going to suffer in the meanwhile before we see any action.
There's a great point. I don't know if you were able to play that clip, Steve, or not, from the opening ceremony from the Commonwealth Games, I believe it was. But it's pretty. Once again, it's a prideful showing. But while he's getting that set up, there it is.
Right. Yeah, I saw that. Wow.
Right out in the open, isn't it?
Yep. The demons might be
El Toros.
That thing's down the street from my house right now.
Maybe they can use that to heat their homes in the winter.
It reminds you of that subway that got opened up. Remember that subway back in, was it Copenhagen? I can't remember where it was. That they basically had like a big thing like that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
The underground one.
That's the worst interpretive dance I've ever seen in my life.
It's possible that because we know the enemies, the powers, principalities, and the fallen angels are really behind this. And they've been behind this for the longest time, kind of slowly getting men to become nothing but animal because we are our will and intellect are just bit. It's possible that they know for a fact, maybe they don't know exactly when, but they have better knowledge than we do, that things are kind of starting to get to the end. Maybe the justice is coming. Our Lord is going to act in a big way, that they're getting desperate, so that they might be increasing these things, and we're going to pay for these consequences.
Flaz, you brought up an awesome point, and let me just get this in and we'll come to Steve. The current population is too resistant to any of this, and I'm not saying it's a wide path. It just has to be enough. There's enough people who are aware or whatever you think. And I've started, for some reason, you can take this to the bank, you can wipe me off as a conspiracy theorist. I have a feeling that this flu season is going to be one that is going to just be it's going to make COVID look like a warm up, because you've had these mRNA vaccinated people dancing around for a year. Then they're able to get and interact with cold viruses and interact with flu viruses and get stronger and more adaptive. And I think this, to your point, Flaz, about kill events, besides what's going on in Germany, I think everybody, people that have taken 5, 6, 7 shots of this stuff, it may be an earth-shattering event to reset, the population to be more accepting to whatever they're trying to say. Once again, you can bounce me off as a conspiracy theorist or not.
That's a good point.
I just have a feeling about it.
That's a good point. Yeah, no, that's a great point.
So, Steve.
No, exactly what I've said that before too, telling a couple priests I know, so watch out for the winter. I expect the death count to go up a little bit, especially with all the jabs. And you started seeing that with Jay Wilderness, his videos. He just had a 6-minute one to just show just in June when all the deaths that happened with athletes in their 20s and 30s. This is incredible. When Jonathan brought up the controlled opposition thing, it made me think of Georgia out there that won the Italian vote. And you think about the EU lady that was saying, "Oh, we got the tools to get rid of her, or we'll get rid of the vote. We'll make sure it doesn't happen." Notice it's been silence ever since that happened. And after the vote came out, we come to realize that she's not only a big Zionist for Ukraine almost at all costs, and for the digital ID. I didn't know any of that digital IDs. I didn't know about that before the vote. And I'll admit, I was going, hey, go Georgia, go get this out. Maybe she's better in the sense of the other guy that was coming in. But it's just my again, Spidey says it's tingling. Why ain't the EU guys losing it right now over this? Yeah. It got real quiet after she got in. Again, she could be great. There's a guy that did a video, Skeletons in the Closet, in the sense of we got to sit back and watch and see what happens. And I agree. We can't just jump out of me going, holy cow, there's one of them, that a Decepticon in a sense. So yeah, sit back and watch and see what happens. But it's just curious that happened. And there's been, like I said, crickets since. No pun intended for eating the crickets. Right now.
Eat them, eat those bugs. But so John, you're heading out, buddy. I appreciate you stopping by and hanging out with us. If you want to give us a saint of the week and cry room.
Well, yeah, and I was just going to say, Mark Crispin Miller is a guy whose stuff I read on Substack sometimes. Mark Crispin Miller, he's been following the enormous jump in inexplicable deaths. You know, the different ads, you know, that are going on out there. So it's not sudden infant death syndrome, but what happens with adults there. He's been following this for a long time and said it's been skyrocketing already in the last 6 months to a year. And I mean, most of the physicians who have weighed in on this have said, you know, it looks like the kind of kill time for the jab seems to be anywhere from about 6 months to 2 years out max. So maybe it won't simply be a stronger flu virus or simply a weaker immune system, but maybe even the kind of planned deaths thanks to this. I'm going to give it up to Jeffrey Sachs for being honest, and I want to pray. You know, Steve mentioned something he did there back in August that seemed to be another kind of venture into honesty, and truth always works. Okay, and so maybe while the rest of the world is turning around, to kind of borrow St. Bruno's phrase there today, maybe he's trying to stay where he was, which may have been crazy 5 minutes ago because the world's moving so fast into further craziness. Maybe he's trying to remain sane. I have to go tutor some seminarians in Latin, so I'm going to jump off in a hurry, but God bless you guys and hope to see you all again next week.
God bless. Thanks for hanging out with us, John. I appreciate it. So it looks like we'll probably wrap this up anyway, because I know Fawaz got to get out, and so do I. But Fawaz, who do you want to use for your Saint of the Week and Cry Room?
You know, for my Saints of the Week, actually, I'm going to pick somebody who's in this panel. You know, I think that Steve doesn't get enough credit, to be honest with you. I think it's not just the Cecilian videos that have converted so many people into the traditional movement and helped souls, you know, become better husbands and fathers and families, you know, through those videos. But the effort that he's put in, but also this being level-headed on Twitter, and same thing with you, Rick. What I love about you guys is the fact that you're not worried about how many followers you have. You're not worried about getting into this Catholic Twitter's sphere and world and infighting. You know, he's talking about looking like the nuke is coming, and you guys are worried about what's, you know, the sewer. You know, so like, kudos to Steve, and also for you, Rick. I'll put you guys in the.
How dare you!
I just troll people. That's all I do. That's all I do.
I appreciate it. We need that. We need that. You're the Catholic Elon Musk. It's great. You know?
I just need to get paid like him.
But, yeah, we need more. Well, you know, it's the thing. We need more good people with money, because Bill Gates just spent, I think it was $12 billion on digital ID just like this week. He just gave a WF 12 billion, I think, something like that. But my cry room, I have to do this. I'm going to put Herschel Walker's kid on there.
Oh,
and
yeah.
the only reason I'm doing that is number one, whether it was true. Now, first of all, you talk about how great of a father he was, and he's going to be a great senator. Then you know, October before the election, you turn. It's not so much that whether it's true or not. It's the fact that I'm old school when it comes to family. You don't turn your back on family ever. If you have a problem with family, you do it in private. Never make another family member appear bad in public. You know, you never take sides of anybody outside of the family. I think that's why I'm putting him in the cry room.
Truer words from the Don: never go against the family. Never go against the family in that regard. That's a good point.
Yeah.
Steve, who do you got?
I'll go with the crime room of the Fed, the social credit score, and anybody that goes to Australia, Europe, parts of Europe, anybody that goes with the social credit score, and the people that let it happen, I will go with that for the cry room.
So everybody?
Everyone's in the cry room. Well, how about? Well, it's just one of those things that boggles the mind. But you mentioned before, this happened on the 30th of September, and it's now the 6th of October, and I still don't know of a single Catholic news guy, whatever creator, that has even mentioned this.
Right.
I don't know what else. I mean, we're selling our own books and all that. We're pushing on. Hey, guess what? In 3 to 4 years, that doesn't care. You're going to have zilch. No money's in there. You're going to have no wealth. Obviously, you got the housing crisis coming. That's kaput. You won't be able to drive. What good is it to sell 100,000 books if you can't use any of that? Or I'm confused. Our priorities we're running hard, but not on the right path in my mind. Saint, it's not painted, but hey.
Judge hitting 310 after the one hit in game
You just complained about people caring about this stuff.
I know.
Altuve has
I don't know why they switched the video on me on that. But Aaron Judge at 62 the other day. Yes, I know I complained about it, but it's still baseball. It's America's pastime. And I'm a baseball guy. And I wish I could
It's America's nap time.
I just can't watch anything.
Yeah.
It's cool to see history like that.
Yeah, while they lost. That shows you how much they actually cared about playing the game.
I know.
Yeah, forget the Yankees. When I was a guy, I was a Sox fan. So that you're in the cry room for putting that up there. That's it. I'm putting you in the cry room for putting the Yankees up there, man.
How dare you?
That's the first. We have Steve in a saint and a cry room at the same time.
That's right. In the same show. My saint of the week is my family. I don't get to see him enough. But I'm back in Rhode Island. I got to see my brother, and I'm at my sister's right now, and I just love when I'm so happy to be around them. And they let me stay here for a couple of days and put up with me, so that makes them the saint of the week. So that's it. Thank you guys for hanging out with us. Like, subscribe, and share the news from the pew. We'll talk to y'all soon. God bless, and Viva Cristo Rey.